We'll find out.
Ed starts. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Bensalem Township Council meeting. Today's date. What the heck is this? Oh, where's this from? Wait a minute, I lost my agenda.
So underneath your stuff over there.
There it is. Okay, here we go. I had a July date up here. I said, no, that's not right. I have an August the 14th. Ask you to please rise for a moment. Silent meditation or prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, we did better than the soccer team. Anyway.
Doesn't break my heart.
No one does. Okay. Okay, I'd like to introduce to you our council members and staff that are at the dais this evening. To the extreme left, we have our township engineer, Phil Worcester, looking sharp with a new haircut, I'll tell you what. Okay, that sounds good. Next to him, Debbie McBreen, our council secretary. And in the extreme right, on my extreme right, we have Joe Pizzo, our township solicitor. We have the Honorable Mayor Joseph DiGirolamo sitting right next to him. And then our council members, we have Secretary Joe Knowles. Next to him, we have Stacy Champion, to my right here. And to the extreme left on council, we have Michelle Benitez, the council person, and Vice President, we have Joe Polari. I'm Ed Kisselback, and I'm chairman this year. And we'd like to begin the meeting starting with a public comment. That's on agenda items. I would like to come up and comment on agenda items. You'll have the opportunity, of course, as they are presented. And so that would be usually the appropriate time and works out real well. But if no one comes forward at this time, I'm going to move on to agenda item number 4, which is the approval of the council minutes. This is for the July 10th meeting that I was holding up just a second ago. Are there any corrections, changes, deletions on the minutes that were presented to us? If there are none, I'm going to ask for an approval to be put on the floor as a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Have a second on the motion. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? The abstentions? All right, that's unanimous. Moving on, Mr. Pizer, is anything being taken off the agenda this evening?
Nothing of which I'm aware, sir.
Nothing at this point. Okay, that's wonderful. Moving on to agenda item number 5. This is a discussion regarding to September's council meeting. This is something I asked to be put on the agenda. September 11th, there doesn't seem to be a heck of a lot of items coming forward. And so we are considering at this time changing the date from September 11th to September 18th. If indeed we change it to December 18th, since that's near the end of the September meeting dates, we would probably cancel the 25th also. So I have one meeting in September. And so that's just for our consideration. If there is any comments, any discussion on that, I don't think we need to do it in the form of a motion, but everyone's aware of it. That's my intention, okay? All right, moving on to agenda item number 6. This is a consideration of a resolution of an intergovernmental agreement. This is to participate in a grant application for the Towns Against Graffiti. We've been doing this for years and years and years, and I'll have Mr. Pizzo explain this in a short version of what's happening here, and we'll have it for consideration by council.
Yes, I don't know that there's much to add to what you said, Mr. Kisselback. The Towns Against Graffiti program is very much an initiative of Bensalem Township that Mayor DiGirolamo started many, many years ago. Bensalem has served as the lead agency in Towns Against Graffiti since its inception, and the intention would be for the township to continue in that capacity. The agreement that is in front of you would be the intergovernmental agreement that would continue our participation in the program and continue to designate us as the lead agency. The renewal of the agreement will be a precursor to action that we'll be coming to you with later in the year in terms of applying to the redevelopment authority for redevelopment assistance funds that help to fund the TAG program and have done so for a number of years now in the past. So the agreement is in a form acceptable for your consideration and approval this evening.
And that's in the amount of $175,000, and again, as I said, it's done every year. Any additional discussion on this? Would anyone like to make any comments? If not, I'm going to ask for a motion to be put on the floor for this consideration of the resolution to be approved.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution of intergovernmental agreement to participate in the grant application for Towns Against Graffiti.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor.
I'll second the
We
motion.
have a second on the motion. Any additional discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor? Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? That is unanimous. And moving on to agenda item number 7. This is a real important agenda item, I believe, and we all have our opportunity to make comments, but it's agenda item number 7 is the consideration of a resolution improving the placement of a referendum question on the November 3rd, 2023 municipal election ballot. And this is with the township. So we have Mr. Tom, well, first of all, I'm going to have Mr. Pizer just briefly explain what it is, and I'll have Tom Topley come up here, the head of that, and explain what we're doing with that. Joe, you just want to tell us what it is?
Certainly.
10 words or less?
Again, I think your description outlined pretty much what the public would be interested in knowing, other than beyond Mr. Topley explaining the rationale for this. But ultimately, the rescue squad has approached the administration and is now approaching council to ask that a referendum question be placed on the November 7 ballot that would allow for an additional tax of up to $1 million to be collected on real property in the township. That tax money, if approved, would go specifically and only to the rescue squad to help fund their operations. And as you'll hear from Mr. Topley in a moment, they are in desperate need of that additional funding for those operations. So if council, in order for the question to be placed on the ballot in November, it requires the approval of council authorizing that the question be placed on the ballot. The Board of Elections will then review the request, and if the Board of Elections gives its blessing, the question would be on the ballot, and then the voters of the township would have the opportunity in November to say yay or nay, yes or no, whether they want that additional funding to go directly to the rescue squad. And Mr. Topley will explain to you what the additional funding would go to and why it is so desperately needed at this time.
And before we go further, I want to make sure that you stated that correctly, and I am incorrect, because you said the date of the election is November 7th. I believe that is correct. I said the 3rd.
Oh, I don't know what you said, but I believe it's the 7th.
Yeah, I want to make sure that that's on the record as opposed to someone being, at least I don't tell them the 8th. Tom Topley, would you come up, please, and elaborate on the importance of this and what you're doing and what you're asking us to do for us, I should say?
All right, I want to thank the council for having me tonight. I want to thank the mayor for support on this. The rescue squad has not had a tax increase since 2010. We've been doing very well since then. In 2020, we had a tax referendum put on the ballot in the middle of COVID, and it was denied. People weren't working, we were in lockdown for a while, things like that. And we were in desperate need to upgrade our fleet and upgrade some of our major capital equipment like heart monitors. Our heart monitors were 15 years old, they were at the end of life. And we did not get approved for the millage increase at that time. Since then, the mayor has worked very hard. Our state representatives, Jean DiGirolamo, Casey Tomlinson, Senator Tomlinson, Senator Frank Ferry, to get us a lot of grant money, and we got our fleet upgraded, we got our capital equipment, we have state-of-the-art equipment again. But now the problem we've run into is post-COVID, there's such a shortage of EMS personnel nationwide. There was a nationwide shortage of EMS personnel prior to COVID, and during COVID, many of the paramedic institutes had to shut down operations. Many in the state and throughout the nation never restarted operations. Many of the EMT programs didn't train any EMTs for a year. So we already didn't have any new people coming in the system, and now we have even less. The problem's greatly personified. So supply and demand, there's such a shortage of personnel, people are paying a lot more money to attract people to their, so we wound up being very low in salary and losing people. Over half of our staff probably is just about 18 months in right now. We lost people with 10, 15, 20 years experience during COVID, and we can't replace them. So we recently had to increase our salaries for our paramedics and EMTs. Our call volume's increasing. In 2010, we needed a third ambulance to keep up with demand in town. In 2023, we need salaries just to keep those 3 ambulances up, and there's even more demand. We're looking probably between 8,600 and 9,000 calls this year in the town. 1 out of every 7 calls in all of Bucks County for EMS is in Bensalem. We're keeping up with volume, but we have people that are working a lot of overtime. We're starting to see some burnout, and we need to be able to be competitive and attract more EMTs and paramedics to Bensalem from the local rescue squads and the surrounding areas. We're losing a lot of people to New Jersey right now. It's about a $10 an hour difference to go across the river and work for hospital systems in New Jersey. So that's the rationale. I want to remind you that if you approve this tonight and the people of Bensalem approve this in November's election, we actually won't see the money till December 24, January 25, because if it gets approved this November, the township needs 2024 to collect. So it's not like it's going to be approved in November and we're going to see an increase in our funding immediately. So we're looking 2 years out. I've shared our financial situation with the mayor, director of public safety, Bill McVeigh, and they're behind this, and we're asking council's approval.
Well, do you have any volunteers anymore that are doing that EMS work? We did at one point, years ago.
Yeah, so when I started, there was 4 paid people in the rescue squad and about 60 volunteers. Now it's really, we have 25 full-time people, we have about 25 part-time people, and we probably have 20 volunteers on the books. 10 of them are actually active, doing maybe 200 hours a year. A lot of people getting into EMS today, the training, and the fire service is seeing the same problems. The training requirements are so great. It's hard for them to stay, or they come in and then they go into nursing school or medical school, PA school. But I gave Director McVeigh this example. Municipal police officer is probably one of the longest training jobs that you could hire for as a municipal. You can take somebody off the street, and if they pass all their background, send them to the police academy, and between the police academy and FTO training, in about 16, 18 months, you have a fully functioning officer. If we take somebody with 0 experience and want to put them on the ambulance, they have to go through EMT school, which is about 6 to 8 months, and then paramedic school, which is about 2 years, and then they have to do some street time. It takes almost 3 years to take somebody with no experience and get a paramedic. So that's another problem we're facing, getting people into the system. It takes so long to train them. So it's really important we retain our people.
Tommy, do you have, so people know out there, if this gets approved and it's on the ballot, so they know when they're making a decision, what is 1 mil to an average taxpayer in Bensalem? I could guess what it is, but I wondered.
I would only be able to guess. We'd have to get John Jakowski or maybe Mr. Pizzo would be able to.
I think it's around $22 or $25, something like that.
Well, you're asking for $0.5 correct?
Isn't it?
One mil increase.
1 mil.
1 mil time.
1 mil increase, not half a mil.
And, we all know 1 mil is not $1 million.
The average appraised value.
The public thinks that's $1 million, but it's actually a mill's a
That they would get.
percent.
Each town.
Depends
One
what
of
your
the
praise-
things, Tom, that the
depends what
people
your
don't
praise
understand,
value
I
is.
think the
You
people
should
of
know that.
Bensalem, it's on. I don't
What's
know
the,
why
you
it's
should know
not.
that.
What the people in Bensalem
What's the praise value? of
don't
your house? I
understand
don't know.
is that what you guys do, I mean, you have a stroke unit that most other townships don't have. You have the amount, all the people, we have 64,500 people here in Bensalem that live here, plus you have transitory people coming in and out. You have the casino over there. You have so many things that you guys run calls on and have to do rescues on, that you need to have the income to do this, and we have to start becoming competitive, take care of our residents, take care of our people. I think the residents need to know exactly what you're doing so they know what they're voting for, and there should be no reason why they wouldn't vote for this, because it's very important to them in case they have an emergency, and for other people in the family and people's friends and people that work here. So it's really important.
In the beginning, the very first paragraph, it says, to support ambulance, rescue, and other emergency services, which is serving the township. And Mr. Knowles, did you answer your own question and say that it was $22?
Well, I think it's,
mean,
it depends
you
on,
think what it
that
is.
you take a mill, right, 1 mill, you times it by your appraised value. So if you know what your appraised value of your house is, I just don't know what the average appraised value of a house is in
Okay.
Bensalem. I think it's, if your house is appraised, for tax purposes at 20,000, then 20,000 times .01 is $20. So for a lot of people, it's going to be $15, $10, or $12. If you live in a higher-end house, then it's going to be a little bit more. But it's going to be at the most $20, $25.
And
I
that's
think
for the
that's an
year,
important
to be
aspect.
clear.
A year,
When
a
you're
year.
presenting it to the public, especially on election day, that would be an intricate part of what you're asking. Because when you tell people a mill, they don't know if it's a mill translates into $1,000, $100, $10,000. If it's $15, $20 based on the average, whatever it is, I think that's an important aspect that you should.
Yeah, I think
bring that to light.
last time we did this, it was about a cost of a pizza, 1 pizza a year increase to the households.
Pepperoni pizza
Yeah,
or?
pepperoni or?
I think it was a plain.
Okay.
So I have one question. What is it currently? Because I don't remember on my tax bill. I don't pay attention. I just pay my tax bill. What is the current millage for fire?
What's the total millage?
Well, there is
for
no
Bensalem?
mill, there is no
There's
mill
not?
for fire.
Isn't it separate on, is there something, and when you look at it?
I believe at 1.7.
1.7 currently. And so what are we going up to then?
This would authorize it to go up to 2.7.
Okay, because this does say 1/2 mil
Right.
on the resolution.
It says additional
The
1
third-
mill
The
on
third paragraph of the resolution
Oh, the
says.
third paragraph.
In November
Additional, okay,
2010,
I
which is
missed
the
that.
period that
Thank you.
I read it the same way.
Mr.
Okay.
Topley spoke to, is when.
Right.
Thank you.
For the minimum amount of money this is going to cost, people need to look and say, what is my life worth? $20 a year, $30 a year, it's worth that to make sure that you have the protections you need to protect your family. That's just my comment.
I'm going to read the actual resolution we're voting on, which will be presented on Election Day, November 7th, and it says, shall the township, this is the question, shall the Township Council of the Township of Bensalem be authorized to increase the real property tax for the operation and maintenance of the ambulance and rescue squads serving the township by an additional 1 mil? That's pretty good relative to them putting a ballot on the question during the election, because most of the time, when you read a ballot question, you have no idea what you're reading. There's an attorney that would confirm that. So that's pretty straightforward. So it's going to be your duty and your obligation to make sure you have people at the polls, or I don't know if you're going to go out, but when we're out door knocking and talking to people, I can assure you that we'll be bringing it up, Joe and myself and the potential school board people will bring that up too, that the people are aware of it because it's that important.
And we will be at the polls. I actually don't know if we have enough people to be at all the polls. We'll be at most of them. But right now, we are so short-staffed. Any given day, about half the staff's actually manning ambulances and the mobile stroke unit.
All right, is there any additional questions from anyone? And this is a resolution, so we do not need public comment at this point, but how about our council members? Any other thing?
I do have one question. So you said it was 1 out of 7 of the calls in county or for Bensalem related to
Yes.
EMS? And so we're like 10%, so I can't do my math. I'm trying to do the math.
Well, more than one.
Yeah, we've been running about 12 to 15% of the county's call volume.
That's about
So it's about 2.5% above our average residential, number of residents then,
We're,
if we're a little over 10%. So, yeah, okay. That would make sense then.
Okay.
Is there anything else that we can do to help market this? I feel like I was pretty confident that in the first referendum that we would have success, and we did not. And I would like to see this result end well for our,
Well, I'm sure the
emergency
mayor can put a
services.
presentation on his TV program and bring Mr. Topley up, talk to about on the TV program.
just to educate the public
Great.
on what this really means and what it equates to for them, for their families.
Yeah, because who wants these things? Nobody watches the council meetings.
It's more than you think.
Yeah, but not when they're being broadcasted. Okay, well, I'm sure we'll all put ideas in the head for the mayor, for him to consider the administration part of it. But his TV show would be one I would suggest. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask for a motion to be put on the floor.
I'll make a motion we approve as presented.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second?
We have a second on the motion. Those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
And against, any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. Tom,
thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Good luck, good luck. Okay. Now, if I wasn't sitting in the seat, I would have made the motion.
What's that?
If I wasn't sitting in the seat, I would have made the
You
motion.
should have.
I know. I know. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8, we have consideration of a preliminary and final subdivision for Gibson Holdings. Mr. Pizzo, could you comment on this, what's happening with this project that's been before us a number of months?
I can. As council is aware, this item has been tabled for a series of meetings while the
Stacy?
appeal that had been taken from the decision of the zoning hearing board was making its way through the courts. I'm pleased to advise council that consistent with the direction that had been given, that zoning appeal has been settled. The settlement of the zoning appeal provides for the approval of the land development plan that had been presented to the township and reviewed by the township engineers that will take care and address the issues that were raised during the council hearing on that particular application. So at this point, item 8 can come off of the agenda, the matter having been resolved through the settlement of the zoning litigation. Item 9, however, which is the approval of the Act 537 plan amendment to allow for the now approved plan to move forward, that will require action by council this evening.
All right, so I'm going to ask the council to formally put that in the form of a motion that we're taking agenda item number 8, which is in fact Gibson Holdings, LLC, 1515 Gibson Road, off of the agenda based on the presentation of our solicitor just a moment ago. Can I have that motion put?
I'll
on the
make a
floor?
motion that we remove number 8, consideration of preliminary and final subdivision for Gibson Holdings LLC due to the ruling by the courts that Mr. Pizzo just explained.
All right, is there any, I'll ask for a second on that motion first, I'm sorry. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
We have a second on the motion. Is there any additional discussion on that motion? Not hearing any, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Let's move on to agenda number 9, which is the consideration of a resolution. This is for Act 537, and that's the Pennsylvania Sewerage Facility Act. And this is a plan revision for the new development of a parcel and land identified as 1515 Gibson Road subdivision. If they don't have this approval, then they can't go forward. Everyone knows what it is. It's pretty standard as far as we understand. Joe?
You typically approve one of these for just about every land development project that you approve, certainly where there is a change in the township sanitary sewage plans, and most of your land developments result in that because they require either an extension of the existing sewer system or new tap-ins to the existing sewer system. And in both cases, the Department of Environmental Protection, as well as the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority and the City of Philadelphia Water Department all require council's approval of those changes to the township's sanitary sewage plan.
Okay, with that, I'm going to ask is there any questions from our council members? I ask for a motion to be put on the floor.
I'll make a motion, we approve as presented.
We have a motion.
I'll second the motion.
We have a second. Any additional discussion? Not hearing any. I ask for a vote to be taken. Those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? All right, that's approved. Unanimous. Agenda item number 10. This is a consideration of a preliminary and final land development. This is for Shocks Express Cargo Incorporated and Mr. C. Roves Vaf Vey. And this is at Winks and Marshall Lane, truck parking. This is a GI General Industrial District, and the tax map is 02-075-079.
And if I could, Mr. Kisselback, before you start this evening's proceedings, I'll just remind council that this is a continuation of an earlier hearing that was started in front of all of you several months ago. At the time, the applicant had presented to you a plan that would have provided for truck parking on the property at Winks and Marshall Lane. Council, not being particularly enamored with the plan as presented, asked the developer to go back and see what could be done to actually locate a business on the site rather than just utilizing the site as a parking lot. And at this point, there is an amendment to the plan that was originally submitted to you, consistent with your request of the developer. And at this point, if you'd like, Mr. Kisselback, I would hand it off to counsel for the developer.
All right, we're going to ask you, if you'd be kind enough, if you can make a presentation to us, a short presentation, and then we have a letter from TPD, I think it is, that we can go through that. And then we have an actual section where you are requesting specific waivers. That would be on page 4, and we'll go to that under our instructions. And you can introduce yourself to us if you'd be kind enough.
Thank you, Council. Good evening. Vlad Tanovsky on behalf of the applicant. And as a preliminary matter, would Council permit me to approach and provide copies?
Please, you give it to our solicitor? Yes.
Thank you.
Why don't you hand him to Mr. Fiervarney, and he can handle it.
Okay, and this is verifying that all the surrounding neighbors were notified of this meeting. Joe, you can interject at any time.
Thank you.
When you have that for us.
Thank you, Council. So just to remind you, this is an application for the development of a vacant parcel currently. It's 2.76 acres, and originally proposed was a truck parking of approximately 48 spaces. The current proposal, which amends the preliminary and final plan, seeks to erect a two-story building of 7,200 square feet, which will be comprised of approximately 2,400 square feet of office space. This will be where the applicant will relocate its business operations. It is a trucking and logistics company, so it plans to create 31 truck parking spaces, 14 employee spaces, which includes 1 ADA-compatible parking space. The entirety of its business operations will be relocated to Bensalem, and it will cease its current business operations in Philadelphia, where it currently leases parking spaces. I think initially there were concerns about the use of the parcel. Both the original as well as the proposed use are permitted by right. This is a G1 General Industrial District, and while a parking lot was permitted by right, this proposal, which actually implements the applicant's original plans of having a two-phase development of this property. Initially, they were thinking about starting with a parking lot, and then they contemplated moving up into improving it with a building. This just expedites the relocation of this business into Bensalem and the erection of that office building right now. We have Fioravanti Inc., the engineers for the project, who can walk council through the specifics. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Vince Fioravanti.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Mr. Pazza, before he goes further, I got a question. We have on the plans, we have it on I guess the larger plans, but on the review from TPD, is that? Huh?
The new one that was.
Okay, I have it, I realized it was down on my desk here, but I did not.
I think there
Okay.
seems to be 2 August 11th
All right, I got it. Yeah, thanks,
updated
Jeff.
reviews.
All right, I was concerned with that, but okay, but yeah, I did see this put there, but we weren't notified that that was there. Okay,
Mr. Fioravanti, I guess you could address the
You need the microphone.
you can use that one, sure, if it's long enough. If not, you can use one there also that's, whatever you want to do.
Thank you. Just wanted to go through quickly the exhibit that's before you, and apologize for not bringing a flash drive as I walked in and I saw the screen up there. I did email it, but don't forget it next time. By looking at the exhibit, I can highlight the changes that have made to the plan since we were last before you. You can see them in white. Of course, the major change is the addition of the building, 7,200 square feet, combination of office and garage space for vehicle service. That's in the center of the exhibit. Circulation is still the same. It's counterclockwise around the site. There are spots here for tractor trailers to back up as they go through the building for service or logistics and stacking, then out through the other side on the east side of the property. We've added, you can see the changes in white that were required because of adding the building. Talked to the fire marshal. The fire lane has been adjusted. We also had to add water and sewer to the project now. So we have a water main extension up Winks across with a valve pit and sprinklered and water service into the building. We also, of course, have sanitary sewer lateral for the building now. So we'll have wastewater planning, which is underway for the project. Other than that, you can see the impervious surface actually decreased. There's more green area on the plan. Tractor trailer spaces were now replaced by employee parking spaces with sidewalks. We're also able to do other things, like eliminate the porta potties that were proposed in the upper left corner. Because now that we have a building, if truck drivers would come in off-peak hours, we have a lavatory that's access controlled, so they could use the inside bathroom from the outside doors. So we were able to eliminate that. We still kept the dumpster, of course, which is landscaped. But now we have a fully functional business with the building, the employees, the tractor trailers, but also employee parking and landscaping. We also have landscaping along the front. It's on a different exhibit, and supplementing landscaping along the railroad.
Thank you, Mr. Polari.
If I were to flip to this, we can see the exhibit with the landscaping. And there was one comment about the shrubbery, I think in a previous letter. that they wanted to show the board. I can show that. We do have evergreen shrubs that are proposed, and as you can see, they're hollies and the various types of shrubbery that will be along the Marshall Lane frontage. So they will be evergreen in nature, and they will be planted along the perimeter of the property, along this area here. Otherwise, the plan is the same, essentially. Underground, the stormwater and utilities are the same. The impervious surfaces are reduced somewhat, but still function in the same capacity. So essentially, the biggest change, of course, was the building and how it operates. If you have any questions, we'd be glad to take them.
Yep, and just one additional comment. I believe there might have been a concern about temporary use of porta potties that were included in the original plan. That has since been eliminated. We've removed those. We've retained the concrete slab that was intended because it may have utility to the business during operations, but now the drivers and anybody accessing the property will be able to use, as Mr. Fioravanti indicated, a bathroom system which will have outside access to come into the building, and it'll be locked from the main premises. So it'll be all of the bathroom facilities will be internally contained within the new structure with outside access.
Okay, I'm going to, now that I have the new instructions here, I have that in front of me, I'm going to go to comment on the stormwater management. Is excellent. We're going from a pre-development flow of 100-year design of 2.088 CFS, cubic feet per second, to a 0.9442. So you're going more than half in terms of the flow of water there. That's 100-year. And if we go down to the 1-year storm design, it's the same thing. It's 0.954 to 0.456. Again, less than half of the flow. So for the neighbors that are in that area, they should be really happy that this is happening in terms of your design and how you approach it. And we were happy about that when we discussed it with you, and you exactly did what we asked you to do in terms of that. Stormwater management being an important aspect of everything that we do. Okay? So you have that. And then I'm going to go to page 4 on this TPD dated August 11th. And then we have, I'm going to go right to, and we'll discuss this on the one-to-one, the waivers that you are requesting, and you can elaborate on that. We have on page 4, the first one is section 201-62, parentheses A, and that's to submit a combined preliminary and final plan. Okay, you're asking that for a waiver. And number 2, we have section 201-106C9, and that's to provide a landscape plan by the architect. Now, why are you asking for that? What are we doing here? You're asking for a waiver of that.
Yes, the reason we're asking for a waiver of a landscape architect is it is a trucking terminal facility with the areas that you can landscape are limited here. We do have landscaping, if I can go to the exhibit that I have underneath here. The landscape ordinance required the planting of, I think, maybe 72 trees, and we're proposing 41. We have enhancements along the rear buffer where there's already dense foliage, but we're enhancing the buffer along this area. The other perimeter areas are, because this is a last lot in an industrial subdivision, they're completely occupied by utilities of various natures all the way across the frontage. So it's difficult to plant street trees because there's so many conduits and existing utilities. But we did work with the township engineer, and we did provide buffering along Marshall and also enhanced buffering along the stream corridor at the top. So
How about fencing? Any type of fencing that you're
and we
providing?
do have fencing around the entire property as well.
And that's a
That is a 6-foot opaque fence.
6
Now,
foot.
I might, not to jump in, but I thought you had something where you needed some kind of waiver to make it 6 foot along the front or something instead of 4 feet or something?
6 foot along the rear and the side, but on the front it has to be 4. So we're going to proceed with that and then go to a zoning hearing later to see if we can get it increased to 6.
That'll be zoning hearing board will get you that, okay.
Okay, okay, that explains what you're doing there with it. So you've already have that addressed.
Yes, we do have a landscaping plan to address that.
Okay, and then, so then we're asking for a waiver on that based on what you're providing to us. Number 3 is the partial waiver, section 201-106C. This is a partial waiver for, we're talking about the 34 trees.
Yes, that would
To
be
not
the
require
34
34 out of
street
the, so that's half of the trees you're asking for not to be there. You would then submit that to the tree bank in terms of the monetary value of each tree? Is that
Yes,
correct?
fee in lieu of, yeah.
And the fee in lieu of for that, okay? So that's your asking on that, and you've already explained the reason why. Also, section 201-111A, and this is to not require sidewalks on Marshall and Winks Lane, which makes sense. I don't think you have to describe that to us. And then number 5 would be the next waiver you're requesting, which is to not require curbs for the interior portion of the parking lot. Okay, you have curbs where you have the
We do have
parking
full-
for the employees, so you have that.
We do have full curving around the outer perimeter, but just not in the inside islands here.
Right, okay, but you do have it where the employees are parking.
Yes.
Now, are you willing to pay for in lieu of with the sidewalks also, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then what about the curbs? Is that required on curbs, Joe, or just sidewalks? Curbs are already there, okay. So you'll pay in lieu of, for the sidewalks?
sidewalks, yes.
Okay.
Okay, and then number 6, which is a final waiver, I believe, unless I turn the
He
page
just
and
did- he said
there's
it
another one on there.
didn't say it, so.
That may be. No, okay, so the last waiver you're requesting is number 6, the 6th one, I should say, is section 201-112D, not require the planting strip at the accessible parking stall. Planting strip, what's that?
Yes, we did relocate, we had accessible parking stalls here, 3 at the entrance, but then when we had a building added, we relocated it to make it easier for the ADA access into the building. But as you can see, it's directly adjacent to the building, and there's no 10-foot planting strip between the two. So that was the waiver we're requesting.
Okay. Based on what you're doing, it makes sense, so. Okay, that's it. Ladies and gentlemen, is there any other questions you have at this time regarding the waivers that they're requesting?
So I just have one question. The
Okay, go
foliage
ahead.
you talk about in the back, because that's a grass lot now currently, correct?
Yes,
So you're going to improve the foliage to be more in line for the wetlands, rather than whatever's there is wild and,
Yes, we're
not
gonna
necessarily
supplement
native or whatever.
Where we can and as we can with different types of trees, evergreen trees, provide a buffer. And also it'll be a filter to the wetlands that exist on the other side of the tributary.
okay, thank you.
I'd just like to thank the applicant for listening to council and agreeing to put the building there and not just be a trailer facility. And it took a lot of effort to do that, and we appreciate you hearing council and taking that into consideration and getting it done. So this is a full-fledged business, not just trailer parking.
Thank you, Council.
I'll
for-
comment on it, also say you have been very cooperative with all of us, and we appreciate that. Everyone should be the same as your company. We appreciate your owner back. Oh, there he is. He's up front here. He's sneaking up on me, right? Young gentleman starting a business, coming to Bensalem, knowing where he wants to be, so that's great, too. So we appreciate you being here. And then you'll be moving to Bensalem also, is that correct? Wonderful. Michelle?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, there's no other areas where trees could be planted on the property. I know we were talking about the perimeter.
Yeah, we did
Is there
plant them along the perimeter edges, as we discussed, where the buffer would make sense. And actually buffered, with shrubbery along Marshall. In the area along Winks Lane, it's completely covered and
Utility-based.
occupied by utilities of every kind.
But
Yeah.
what about between
What-
you and the neighbor?
Yeah, and in the lot.
On this side on the left, Aqua has an easement here. That
Okay.
won't allow us to do anything there as well.
So you've done everything you can to put as many
Yeah, it's
trees,
completely
okay.
surrounded.
It's because it's half and I like trees.
Right. Yeah, and then we're planting a lot of trees there, actually. But I think we've done about everywhere that it makes sense. We didn't want to put them in the center, because, there's trucks and tractor trailers, and then it becomes a maintenance issue. But around the entire perimeter, it'll look nice from every vantage point, I think.
Okay, and thank you for the upgrade to the bathroom situation. That was important.
Good suggestion.
I think it'll do well.
Definitely a lot cleaner.
Yeah,
So the way you're describing that, the fence going up around the entire perimeter, the shrubbery and the trees and such will be
On the
within,
outside of the fence.
will be only out, it will be the outside. Okay, I was wondering
It'll
about
be a
that.
landscape look as you go by.
So that people will see it, okay. We want to
But
make
you don't
sure
want
that's
it so high at this, when, whatever you plant on the street side, you don't want it so high that it blocks what's going on inside to make it, even though you have a fence around
Well,
it,
they have to be maintained, you know.
maintained because, for safety reasons and your own security, so you don't want it to.
Okay, this is a final and that was part of the waiver thing, but it will be a preliminary and a final land development. So I'll ask, is there anyone from the public that would like to come up and comment on this proposal? Is there any discussion from the council members? If not, I'm going to ask for a motion to be put on the floor. Joe, you should be appropriately putting it on the floor.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion for Shacks Express Cargo, Inc., Winks Lane and Marshall Drive, truck parking and the building and so forth that's on there, G1 Commercial, tax parcel 02-075-079. We approve this application for preliminary and final with the caveats that you're going to pay in lieu of for the trees that you're not putting on the facilities. You're going to be paying in lieu of for the sidewalks that you're not going to be putting in because there's none there. You'll work together with the township and so forth to make sure that all the stormwater management and so forth is taken care of. That would be it. Joe, did I
Okay.
miss anything?
No, Mr. Polari, other than, so that it's clear in the record, unless a waiver has otherwise been granted, the applicant will comply with the comments of the township engineer as set forth in the August 11, 2023 review letter of TPD. The applicant will comply with the comments of the township traffic engineer as set forth in the August 11, 2023 letter from TPD, and the applicant will comply with the comments and requirements of the township fire rescue department as set forth in the memorandum from Robert Sponheimer dated June 27, 2023.
I'll amend my motion.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Can I have a second?
Second?
We have a second on the motion. Is there any additional discussion? Not hearing any, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen. Hope to see you before us again.
Thank you, council. Have a good evening.
All right. See how easy that is, Michael?
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 11. We have a consideration of a final land development for Edward K. Leiden, a Realty, and this is Associates LP. And this is for 448 Mill Road Manufacturing Warehouse Addition. Light Industrial, tax map parcel 02-023-025. Yes, sir. Okay, agenda item number 11. And we have?
Hi, good evening, Mike McGinnis from Begley
Mike
Carlin,
McGinnis.
here on behalf of the applicant this evening, Edward Leiden Realty Associates LP. I have with me Dan Livesey, who's to my left, and Heath Dumack, who's prepared the plan, which is before council for consideration tonight. And as Mr. Kisselback noted, the property at issue, which is depicted on the plan before you, is 448 Mill Road. It's zoned light industrial. And what I wanted to note at the outset here, for those of you who aren't familiar with what I label EKL's operations, is EKL, Edward Leiden, and/or his affiliated entities actually owns, operates, and controls 3 contiguous parcels here at the bend of Mill Road with 3 separate buildings. So we are here for the 448 parcel, and that specific site is just over 0.9 acres total. But in sum, when you aggregate the 3 parcels together, you're really looking at 4 acres, which EKL uses for its operations in the township. This particular site, as you can see with the aerial, is improved by a 9,462 square foot building, which is used for EKL's manufacturing operations. We are looking to add an approximately 3,360 square foot addition on site. And the basis for this, and you can see right here, it's really between the existing structure and the swim club to the rear, is EKL's operations, which Mr. Livesey will detail greater for council in a minute, requires the purchase, acquisition, and installation of an additional machine at this property. EKL actually just last year subbed out 7 figures worth of business out of Bensalem because they could not keep that capacity on this site in their location. So there is a machine currently on order. It will be installed and maintained within the existing, the addition that's proposed before you this evening, and that will allow EKL to continue to expand its operations in Bensalem and continue to be successful here. EKL is a Bensalem-based business. Ed Leiden actually began working on products like this all the way back in 1979. It's a small family-owned business. Originally, he actually operated a single lathe out of one garage, and he was able to, through his hard work and success, to expand his operations to the 3 properties that we detailed at the outset here. And again, Dan will highlight more of this in a minute, but EKL primarily makes basically products which deal with machine parts, tools, there's engineering that goes on site, and their operation, again, they're seeking to just add a singular machine into the additional building that would be adjacent to the existing building on site at 448 Mill Road. One of the items that we detailed at the zoning hearing board when we appeared back in December and received relief for impervious and setback requirements is because of the unique nature of the 3 contiguous parcels here. EKL has basically fully internalized movements, and what I mean by that is there's a forklift that delivers goods, and Heath, maybe you can highlight exactly where that is here, without ever accessing Mill Road. And even though there is sufficient parking on site, this site in particular from a zoning standpoint, because of the fortunate situation, again, where EKL operates and controls 3 contiguous parcels, the employees, if they ever needed to, had the ability to park on other EKL associated sites. This was tabled just as a brief housekeeping item from a prior council meeting so that we could provide additional stormwater management calculations to TPD. Mr. Dumac's office, subsequent to the tabling, did provide that information to TPD for Mr. Worst and Ms. Khan's review. The majority of our waivers that we're asking for tonight really are associated with the fact that we're not suggesting any modifications to Mill Road. So we'll go into the waivers in a minute with more detail, but again, the majority of the waivers are because we're asking for the existing conditions to remain the same. So you'll see things like a request for no sidewalk installation, no curbing, no widening of Mill Road because of the existing conditions that are there and, again, the business that's operating. Other than that, I think the project is very reasonable in scope, and it's done to support a Bensalem business, which is happy to currently be in Bensalem and looking forward to expanding and growing at this location. So if I could, and you would indulge me, I would turn the microphone over to Mr. Livesey, who would give a bit of a background about EKL, what they're looking to do here, and then I'd have Mr. Dumac just go over briefly the plan that's before you for consideration this evening, and then we'd highlight the waivers that we're seeking. So, thank you.
Thank you guys, thank you all for letting us speak and have our consideration. I'm Dan Livesey, I'm the engineering manager for EKL. I've been working there for 15 years. Ed Leiden, the owner, who's EKL, started the company in 1979. Built it from a single person to, I think we're roughly about 40 some employees total right now. We service what we call the metal container industry. So our customers are everyone who makes any type of food can, beverage can, paint can, any type of metal container is what our customers do. They're 24/7 manufacturers. We provide them with all of the components to go into their machinery to make the cans. We provide them with engineering services to design new pieces of equipment, new pieces of containers. We've recently, in the last couple of years, we designed a new aluminum K-cup for the industry to help with some of the plastic waste and things like that. And then we also go out and do the installations and stuff like that. So there's a line of that running now. And we do all that stuff within this site here. And as we've grown especially maybe within the last 5 or 6 years, we stopped limiting ourselves to what we can create on site, and we've had to reach out and use outside manufacturing, and we really want to bring all that back because we really, in a small sense, are a machine shop. That's how Ed started, and that's where he wants to go. But we built the company a lot bigger than that with engineering and other services, all to provide work to our machine shop. But to more quickly grow, we had to outsource manufacturing, machining, and things like that. And now that we've seen that be sustained for several years, we're really looking at purchasing. We have machines on order to help us bring that work back and internalize that and grow our workforce and things like that. We run 2 shifts of operations in that facility. And that's what the idea of this addition was, is that, we want to, that's, for our manufacturing capabilities, that's about a 30-some% increase on our area to be able to put machines and the equipment that we're buying, and hopefully bring back most of that work that we're sending out elsewhere.
Is it a tape machine that you ordered? You have on order, is that what it is?
No, so the equipment we have on order right now is a CNC grinding equipment for it's a real high precision grinding. It's a 7-figure cost machine. And we deal in very high precision, so we deal in tenths of thousands of inches. I'm not sure what, very, very precision work. Climate control and things like that. So, because the metal industry that we work, the metal container industry, you're working with, 5-6 thousandths thick aluminum. The side of a beverage can goes down to 3.5 thousandths. So your clearances and your tooling and all that kind of stuff has to be real precision. So your tolerancing and stuff has to be. We ship. Although we're based out of here, we service the entire world, every continent we've been on other than Antarctica. We have shipments going to South Africa tomorrow. We service the whole industry because they really use cans just about everywhere. And it's a lot of, we've been very fortunate with growth and things like that. So it's been a pretty good, I've been there for 15 years. I'm a local resident, Drexel graduate, stuff like that. And we built the company up from that. So.
Okay. Sounds like a great story. Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you for that information, so we know about you and what you're doing. And then now we have our engineers going to make a presentation, and I guess we want to go into stormwater management first. Is that what you're going to do, or do you have another thing you want to do with us first?
However you'd like to proceed.
Well, why don't you give me what you want to say first, and then we'll go right to the stormwater management, okay?
Certainly. To refresh everyone, my name is Heath Dumack Engineering. We're here before you for this just shy of 3,400 square foot building to the rear of the existing 6,000 square foot plus existing building. We are proposing an underground ballast system to manage the stormwater on site. We have roughly 10,000 square foot of disturbance on the site. The remainder of the property and of this project will be to leave everything else intact. We can go through the TPD review letters at this point. If you want to discuss anything specific like the stormwater, we can
Well,
do
let's
that
go,
as well.
yeah, let's do exactly that then. So you're at that point. Let's go, that's an important aspect. And it's page 3. We've referenced stormwater management specifically. And we're going to start with the following comments related to the township stormwater management. Number 1, section 196-31, and that's a general requirement. You want to comment on that?
Certainly.
And then we'll go through the actual waivers.
Sure. The stormwater management controls, we did infiltration testing, so we have the actual values for what the basin is going to function as. The ordinance does say that it should drain in 72 hours. At this point, based on our calcs, we're at basically 14 hours. However, TPD is supportive of the fact that we have that infiltration basis. Realistically, we can slow down the infiltration. However, at this point, the basin was designed for the 100-year storm event for all the additional impervious that's on site. And we'd rather keep that volume capacity. If we go with a slower system and slow down the infiltration, it's going to require that we won't be able to handle up to the 100-year storm event, and we would have to make the system much bigger.
Phil?
Mr. Dumack's act is accurate in his statement. If we, it's one of those things where if you make it too big, if you make it, I guess, too big, it's really too small to handle the amount of water. Does that make sense?
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you're not.
Where is it located at currently on the property?
If you, and I apologize, it's an L-shaped geometry, basically where the loading zone is, and then it takes a 90-degree turn and runs parallel to the
And
swim club.
that's built for a 100-year storm?
That is built for the 100-year storm event for the new impervious, for everything that we're putting in.
Everything that we're putting in, what about what you have? Or they don't have to do anything for that? For the old stuff? Does this affect?
He's saying you put it in for what they're putting in. Is there other surfaces that are causing water that don't have drainage?
No, I think the issues that would be, there's significant infiltration. So the water's seeping down, but they're still providing a larger basin area because the water's infiltrating quicker than.
Because of the way the ground is there?
Yeah.
Because it's close to the creek? So it's going down faster?
So you might want a smaller one to slow things down during like a 2-year storm, I believe, versus a 100-year storm. We'd rather have something settled for the 100-year storm rather than just the 2 years.
I don't see the computations for the stormwater runoff change with the addition of the new building. Should I be seeing that?
Is there before and after, or no?
The original iteration of this, when we were scheduled before council, had a comment about stormwater management and providing the calculations, which subsequent to that being tabled, Mr. Dumack's office supplied, and I believe TPD reviewed. Certainly TPD obviously reviewed it because of the balance of the comments. I agree the majority of the land development review letters that we have the table superimposed with the calculations, but we have a requirement to reduce the runoff, which we are
But
with
we
this development.
should have that at this meeting so that we know what the calculations are. We get that on every single development comes in. So, Mr. Worcester, we need to make sure that we get these things and they're with the package when they come in so that we can make the right determination.
It specifically states in the verbiage here to please provide the supporting calculations for the infiltration bed and drain downtime.
Perhaps Mr. Dumack can elaborate on what those differences are as far as the stormwater.
That's fine with doing that, but we should have it in front of us so we can see it. And that's what I'm saying. It needs to be in this. And this isn't the first time that we haven't had this in our packet with other things that we have. When this comes through, we need to make sure that we have these so we know what we're approving.
I think it's really important in this area for obvious reasons. I mean, they were greatly impacted. I mean, it was an awful time down in that section, and it would be very important to me to see what these calculations look like. I hear what you're saying, I understand, what's being presented here, but it is important for us to compare.
Yeah, because they are backing up to the swim club, which I do believe gets flooded, so if you're adding impervious surface, and not that I don't trust you, but, I'm a numbers person, so I want to see the numbers.
I know not to be insulted by that comment, so I'm okay with it. I can tell you I'm 99.9% sure, if you want the number side of things, everything we do is conservative. So
So do you have the numbers handy to tell us?
Unfortunately, I do not have the numbers handy.
Okay, I think what's going to happen is I'm going to ask for that to be tabled, unfortunately, until we have that numbers. Phil, you should have had them for us, to be honest. Michael, you know that. You know what you submitted to us, right? Is that correct?
Yeah,
Mr. Mac, you know that too.
The calcs were submitted.
I mean,
and
you're
were
obviously, you're
reviewed.
making your presentation that you attested to the 100-year storm, but we don't know anything other than that. And as you said, just in the previous presentation, they had the numbers that we could actually see and know there was 50% less on each and every one, where you're just telling us 100-year storm is better, is what you're saying. And I'm pretty much sure that we're on agreement that we would just physically touch it and see it and feel it. Because stormwater management is a big thing with Bensalem Council and administration.
Can I ask a question, Mr. President? Phil, did you get these calculations? Did you see the calculations? Okay, so you can't answer the question either.
Okay. I'm gonna ask
Certainly,
for this.
sorry if I can, we understand that regardless of any of the other underlying circumstances, council is always conservative about stormwater management, particularly in this area of the township, which we're mindful of and why we, in fact, tabled the prior meeting to provide that data. So we have, I mean, it is what it is. We
can go through this
No.
at this time, but it would make sense to me. I think it'd be just as easy to have everything together and go through it at that time. So I'm going to ask for this to be tabled, if we can have a motion on the floor.
I'll make a motion to table agenda item number 11 for final land development for Edward K. Leiden Realty Associates, tax parcel 02-023-025 to a date certain of September 18th.
Could we do perhaps the 28th, since we're not making a resubmission? I think it's literally just putting the table on the plan.
August the 28th, you want to
August
come
I'll
back?
be here on the 28th,
Okay.
if that's okay.
To a date certain of August 28th.
It's fine with
then.
me. All right, so we have a motion on the floor to table.
I'll second it.
We have a second on the motion. All those in favor signify with an aye. Aye. And against, the abstentions are unanimous. We'll see you then. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Deb, you want this back on? You don't need this one? Okay. Okay, move on to agenda item number 12. This is the consideration of a preliminary and final land development for TIC Associates, 4636 Somerton Road. This is Phase 1 and 2. This is going to be light manufacturing warehouse. GI General Industrial, 02-003-002. I think you want to present it to us or something.
Good evening, everyone.
Somebody should have
Second?
that email with that note.
Yeah.
They would have seen it.
Exactly.
Somebody should have it.
How difficult was that?
It was embarrassing. It was very embarrassing.
Justin Giannotti with Dynamic Engineering. I apologize. Ed Murphy is on his way. He is running late, so we were going to get started without him. If he shows up, we'll bring him up, but I think we can walk this through pretty quickly tonight, if that's okay.
Sure.
So if everyone recalls, we were here previously for a final approved plan for the same property off of Somerton Road. At that time, it was a manufacturing facility specifically designed for Weber Manufacturing out of Philadelphia. That deal has since fell through a number of economic reasons. The building that was previously designed was very highly specific for their use. So we had an L-shaped building that was prepared so that they can have their corrugator. It was not a necessary component of the site plan without them being involved. So what we are here for tonight is an amended plan that is, by all measures, a less intense plan. It's a smaller building, less docks, less parking spaces, and it's the same exact application being prepared, just all less intense uses. We submitted amended plans to Mr. Worcester's office. We did receive review letters back from both the traffic and the land development component of those plans. Through conversations with Mr. Worcester's office, all comments in those letters are will complies. Here tonight to walk you through whatever you would like to discuss about that application, but happy to, they're all will complies from both an engineering and traffic engineering review letter
What
standpoint.
changed exactly, like where?
So
And I
if I
think-
can point to the plan, I can go to another close-up, which shows a little better. So if you recall, the previous application did have an extension of the building which jutted out over here on the top portion of the property. That was specifically because they had a main corrugate that was a city block long. So we had to make this building a little bit more irregular shaped. They needed more parking because they had more employees for the size of the building. And they also needed more docks for their operation. It was highly specific for their use and how they store and keep trailers on the property. Without them, this is a more typical facility layout that is being proposed. We don't have the jogs in the building. They're just not necessary at this time. They're without Weber being on board. So we wanted to go back, reduce the scale of the application, reduce some of the docks and parking stalls that are not necessary given the proposed light manufacturing and industrial warehousing use.
Different type of manufacturing business altogether, is that correct?
Correct. So the building's being proposed as to fall under the light manufacturing warehousing use in your ordinance. So at this time, yeah, it's not the specific for Weber Manufacturing, which had a very specific building configuration necessary.
Okay.
Okay, so that's good that you told us what's off, okay? Because I do remember we approved the other plan, so that's less. Is there anything that's more?
Nothing's more. So, and if I can walk through some of the other site changes, with the Weber, due to the configuration of the building, we had to do underground stormwater management, which was underneath the full truck court. Based on this layout, there's a lot more green space that we are allowed to do above ground stormwater management. So the stormwater management still complies with your ordinance. Right now, the site has nothing. It's everything that hits that site, and if everyone's familiar with what was on the property or previously, there's should be loaded. This front portion of the building, which it was there now, is just a sea of asphalt, large building. This was, of course, Suez, their research and development, their main office building in the front with a sea of parking around it. So that is being demolished. We're putting up the new facility. The stormwater management is being proposed as an above-ground facility along the back in this area back here, which will take and treat all the stormwater off of that building, the parking lot, and the adjoining drive aisles for the facility.
I see you have the flow charts on here too, so that's good.
Yeah,
Is that a basin area?
that's a basin area in the
Okay.
back. So it's in this area right back here. It's still a large scale. You can't really see it, but it is an above-ground infiltration basin. It's planted, so it looks naturalized, and it does provide full stormwater management for that full facility to bring it
How
within.
big is that basin?
Very large. It's about an acre and a half or 2 acres of a basin footprint in the back.
It's hard to imagine
Yes.
it because of the size of the building. It looks,
Yeah, so you'll see, and it's deep, and it has obviously an infiltration bottom. It's a planted bottom. We did submit to Mr. Worce's office to confirm that we meet rate, volume, and water quality, which is all the three components that are necessary for stormwater management. This project did have an MPDS permit for the previous application as well, and we've resubmitted to them, and it is going to be deemed acceptable and technically complete shortly as well.
Phase 1 and Phase 2 on your stormwater management, how does that relate to the actual building itself?
So, to walk you through how this was previously approved, Weber Manufacturing was taking the front portion of the property as a subdivided lot. So we had a Phase 1 and a Phase 2 plan. Phase 1 was strictly to demolish the building, as you see up here, demolish the building and to construct the relocated access to keep the existing Suez facility in use while they were constructing the Weber building in the front. So we kept, just with the amended plan, we kept them as a Phase 1, Phase 2 plan. As part of Phase 1, there's no stormwater, but the whole thing is going to be constructed basically together. So Phase 1 and Phase 2 is just a way for us to break up, I want to call it the contracts of how this was going to be built. But as you can see, we're demolishing the whole site and getting rid of all the impervious in Phase 1. So there is no stormwater requirement because there's less impervious. But as we add in the building as part of Phase 2, that basin gets constructed, and then all the impervious that runoff goes to that basin and gets treated to within township and state regulations.
But it's being, even though Phase 1 and Phase 2, as we've referenced in your presentation, it is all one
It is all
building
yes.
presentation.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. I should have, we're keeping, the way that we did it previously with Weber, since this is an amended plan, we're keeping the same configuration of the plan set, Phase 1, Phase 2. It is all one application. It is the same project. It's just Phase 1 is just the reconfiguration or the demolition of the building, which has already been demolished, and then the reconstruction of the road and utilities to serve Suez in the back.
Do your change in flow numbers get better?
For the
with
stormwater
this-
management?
For this, because I don't have my,
Yes, so
Those from the original.
I'll read you some of the numbers. So that from a square footage perspective, the Weber building is about 61,000 square feet less, or the new building is approximately 61,000 square feet less than the Weber building, which was previously approved. There's about 31 less parking stalls, less docks and less trailers. So that impervious footprint results in less stormwater management, but our stormwater management is still meeting all the regulations required by your ordinance and exceeding that.
so the stormwater site that you have in this new plan, is that still the same size as the old one, or?
It's an above-ground
It's
basin.
above ground, but in terms of size?
Size is the same, so volume capacity is the same. It has the same volume and same treatment capacity as the
That
underground.
makes, okay.
Underground systems have structure to them, so they don't have the void space as an open basin.
Mm-hmm.
So this basin is actually a larger basin for what's being proposed, than was previously proposed.
Okay, we have that information. We have, you've had several zoning variances for this new project granted, correct? And then we go to the subdivision and land development ordinance comments, page 3. How about if we go through those? There's not that many. We have 2 of them, is that
So
correct?
there was three waivers. So yes, the start with your first part. The zoning relief that we had for the Weber application is still it runs with the land, but we are actually reducing the magnitude of a lot of the variances that were granted, so they still apply. From a subdivision and land development perspective, we had 3 waivers which were previously granted for the Weber application, as I'll call it. So with the amended plan, those waivers are still necessary, but there's nothing in addition. So we still need the same waivers. The first one was to treat this as a preliminary final application. So it was a waiver just to remove or to offer separate applications for preliminary and final plans. Our plans are designed to final plan standards, and we already went through. So as an amended plan, we're asking to maintain that waiver. The second waiver from section 112D was to require a planting strip along the building, along the edge of a parking area and the outside wall of the building. Due to ADA standards, the nature of these buildings, we can't provide that, but we're landscaping the same thing we did before, all around it to protect that buffering from the property itself and planting the parking lot to the extent possible. So again, it's an improvement from the previous application, but still necessary for to maintain that waiver.
That's section 201-112.
201-112D, correct.
D?
And then the last waiver is from your stormwater management ordinance 196-61B1. And this is, I'll call this a little bit of a dated ordinance that requires all storm pipe to be reinforced concrete pipe. And we previously obtained a waiver to permit HDPE pipe on site and to have an outside diameter of less than 18 inches. So all the storm pipes on our property convey the 100-year storm, which is the requirement basically for us to do. Some of the areas we don't need that size pipe, and we also, HDPE is more of an industry standard now.
And what about section 201-115, water and storage?
Say that one more time, sir?
Page 3.
Page 3, 201-115, water and storage?
Okay, so
Organize this better.
So the water and sewage, so the must submit a planning module application. So we are in the process of obtaining a planning module for this application. We do not need that waiver.
So you will comply with
That will be a will
number
comply,
2.
yeah. We are getting a planning module for this application.
All right, so yeah, preliminary, Joe, I thought we changed that in the ordinance, that they all came before us for a preliminary and final. Why does this have to be a waiver all the time?
No, the ordinance still provides for an applicant to apply for simply preliminary should they choose to. And from time to time, you'll have applicants that do that. We've had one recently.
Yeah, we did
although
have one,
for the
but
sake
that's like
of-
in 10 years.
I can't remember which one it was, but it is The municipality's planning code provides for an applicant to apply for simply preliminary, and so we try to mirror the MPC as much as possible with
Okay.
those sorts of things.
All right, we got it. Okay, let's move on then to the point of interest, which would be our design for the stormwater management. Phase 1 and Phase 2, looks like we're a little bit of difference, not a heck of a lot. On your stormwater management, 16%, 19% less flow.
So, yes, correct. So if you look through, this is point of interest one for phase one, phase two. What's the most important part of this column is if you look at the last part, the change in flow, that's the reduction. When you look from a pre-development to a post-development, our change in flow. So we're reducing at a minimum in some of the storms, 17%, but at a maximum 20% in phase one. But then if you look at phase two, when we bring the basin on, it's an even further reduction. 100-year storm gets reduced by almost 50%. And as you work your way down, it's significant reduction in storm, and that's just because the existing site does not have stormwater, and your ordinance has a very robust stormwater management requirement, which we are complying with as part of this application.
Why is you have a 2-year storm, why is that only like 5% difference?
It's just the way that the 2-year storm works, a lot of it gets infiltrated, so it gets held back, and it's just an order of magnitude of what actually is being held back in that system. But that 2-year storm is probably, it's a deceiving change in flow because it's actually an infiltration volume which goes into the ground to meet the groundwater recharge requirement.
Okay,
So,
That would make sense.
okay. Makes sense to her.
It does make sense.
I just said it makes sense to you. I just said it. I said it makes sense to you. Okay, we have the information. We already had approved this at one time, as Mr. Knowles had said. It's less grandiose of a plan, and you're certainly providing us with an excellent 100-year storm management. And we probably have them every 20 years nowadays.
yeah, that is true. But, and then there's two clarifications I think we just want to make on behalf of the applicant. So the letters, I think it might have just been the letters reference obviously the light manufacturing and warehousing use, which is reflective of our plan. So one of the letters needs just, I think, updated to reference the warehousing component as well, because now that it's not just a manufacturing facility. And then also we submitted as part of our application a trip generation comparison, which just lists and details uses which could be part of this facility. So we just asked that be incorporated into the record as well.
Yeah, no, I don't see it on here.
Yeah.
Bill, I don't see that impact. Why would there not be that in the, did I miss it, or did I not see it?
They met the requirements associated with the traffic flows and so forth, the reduction associated with the original plan. So I don't know that there's anything other than the actual studies and that sort of thing that can be made part of the record.
Are we talking about the same thing? Are we talking about a zoning change for warehouse versus light industrial?
There's
or
no,
any
It's a typo,
use?
just a typo, not on the letter.
Okay.
yeah, there's no zoning relief necessary for what's being necessary.
But
Everything's a permitted use.
You are increasing the building size, not as, let's just,
Decreasing the building size from where it was previously approved. So we're about 61,000 square feet
so
less.
okay, so you considered the impact fee for the first one, took into consideration where it is now, and you're still increasing what's there. Forget the first one. You're still increasing the size of the building.
From existing today, which is being demolished, versus what was when you say
Okay.
increasing,
Well, then you're answering the question, what was existing and you're building now will be decreasing it.
yes.
Okay.
Yes,
That answers
yes.
the question.
We're
You
saying
still
the same
should have had
thing.
a report on here for the impact. It still should have been in here.
The impact fee,
Go ahead.
a recollection from the last one.
Again, this report should be in our file so we could review these things. If we're going to approve projects like this, there's things that we have to approve, and the actual documentation should be in there. And it's getting to the point where we're asking for these things on a regular basis, and they're not there.
All right, what do you have there, Phil?
There is the traffic report is in the back of the review, in the back of the packet. doing for quite some time is we don't have the whole traffic studies associated with these attachments. We review them and make sure that the trip generation's in compliance with what we need and so forth. We also use the trip generation as the applicant submits. We check it and we come up with the impact fee associated.
All right, so we have here in bold writing, the applicant has agreed to a $50,000 contribution to the township for traffic improvement. So
So the impact, there's no specific impact fee because the existing use of the
building.
laboratory, the headquarters, has more trips than what they are providing. So there's no impact fee, there's no increase in the amount of trips from the existing use. That's why there's no impact fee. At that point, we said, well, we'd like you to do something else with regard to the traffic in the area, so they agreed to a $50,000 contribution to traffic improvements at the intersection.
okay, then
Okay, that's great.
well, I'm going to suggest that, and this is minor in nature, very minor, but we move this impact fee up a little bit further in the report, you know, because I didn't actually, I kind of missed it, so. It's here, it's in here.
Yeah, but we'll, and.
I mean, we went through that.
It's not on here. So the provided documents on here, there's no checklist, so you don't necessarily know what's provided or not provided each time.
Okay.
And this letter is different than the last letter we just looked at in terms of
Right, okay,
guts.
So that's
And how
it.
it's presented.
okay, but it is in our report, it just, I missed it myself,
I
to
did
be
too.
honest.
Well, I have a quick question. Do we remember Weber's hours of operation, and then will that remain the same as well?
So the hours of operation obviously are not known for the new facility, but Weber's operations were a 24-hour operation. So it remained the same or less.
You think?
Thank
So you
you.
can put up more than 24 hours in a day, which we can all use.
So there will be less tractor
We're gonna
trailer
put in there,
traffic
cannot go
on this
above
road
24
than
hours.
1 hour
Weber
more a
was
day.
proposing,
Correct.
as great as, and,
Correct. Correct.
You know, it's not.
So warehousing doesn't have as many workers, though.
Right.
It's warehousing.
They both qualify under general industrial.
I know.
Correct.
Period.
And it's still a split on the road to the railroad side in terms of ownership? The back property owns half and the front property owns half
So-
in terms of,
I don't pay me, okay.
Ownership is going to be maintained by the applicant. So now that
but in the
Weber's.
future, if you ever sell one parcel, then in terms of that, this way
Correct.
there's no,
It is still a subdivided, there's still a subdivision between the existing parcel, correct?
so everybody shares in the cost, so there's no fights.
Yes.
There will be.
Would there be fights?
No, there'll be a shared use
said there will be.
driveway recorded agreement that will spell out the portion of the cost.
Well, that's the thing, is, looking forward,
Right.
future forward, somebody coming in here and saying,
Yep.
you guys approved this and da-da-da, now he won't repair the road.
Okay, Mr. Murphy, you made an excellent presentation, thank you very
Thanks, good,
much.
I'm glad I got here in time.
And is there anyone in the audience who'd like to, is there any other comments from our council members?
I have one question. You live in the neighborhood, correct, if I recall correctly?
I live right,
Well, you don't have to point out your house, I know.
right next door.
Yeah, so,
Right next to
the
stormwater and
the
restaurant.
neighborhood HOA, everybody, they're all aware of the
They're all aware.
change and no issues from
No.
anybody?
No, we present, I mean, obviously, they know now that Weber's not in, and they know that it's a smaller building, so I think collectively, that's a better thing, so.
Sure it is. sure.
Okay, and you're
A
still
lot
going to do all
smaller.
that really nice landscaping and for your walkway and
Ev-
all of that?
Everything's the same, correct.
And it looks better from a fire safety perspective?
Does.
If there's any issues, the fire truck can come in and come out and not have to worry about doing a turn?
That's correct.
Or anything, so
Ev-
that's good, because
And we,
as we heard earlier, safety
Yep.
is one of our most important things that we have in this township.
and we did meet with the fire marshal and did get his approval as well on the design.
Well, you have 4 sides, so,
That's all you need.
4 sides.
And a lot of hydrants.
All right, does anyone like to come forward and comment on this proposal for this land development, preliminary and final? If not, I'm going to ask for a motion to be put on the floor.
I'll make a motion that we approve preliminary and final land development for TIC Associates, 4636 Somerton Road, Phases 1 and 2, preliminary and final, tax parcel 02003-002, general light industrial warehouse, and I'll condition that we grant the waivers previously granted and expressed as number 1, 2, and 3. The previous waivers granted will be granted again in this motion, and also that the applicant agrees to pay $50,000 towards an intersection improvement in the area.
I'll
Is there anything
second.
else, Joe?
The motion should probably reflect that this is preliminary and final amended land development plan.
Correct.
Since we are amending a prior approval, and as referenced in your motion, Mr. Knowles, all of the prior waivers, as well as all of the prior conditions of the earlier approval, which I believe was in October of 2022.
Correct.
So unless either the waivers or the conditions of approval were specifically superseded by this approval, everything from the prior approval still applies. That would include the deeds for the subdivided lot, the access easement. All of those sorts of things need to be recorded with the record plan. All of the comments of the township engineer in its letter of June 14, 2023, all of the comments of the township traffic engineer of June 14, 2023, and all of the comments of the fire marshal of July 11, 2023 are all will comply items, again, unless a waiver has been granted.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Correct.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll amend my motion to include Mr. Pizzo's comments.
All right, we have a motion. I ask for a second on that.
Seconded the motion.
Well, we just changed that, so I want to make sure. we have-
Second the amended motion.
Okay, good, okay. Any additional comments? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye. Aye. Any against, the abstentions, unanimous? Thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks for your patience. Thanks.
How's that traffic doing up there? Play golf with your son. I said play golf with your son.
His new hair color?
Nice, hey, man.
He's always my color.
Okay, we'll take a short recess, and we're going to come back in a minute. We'll be back.
We don't have Deb.
Well, it's okay. It's consideration of signing agreement for 2500 State Road Holdings LLC, that's 2526 State Road, vegetated swale and rain garden. That's the proposed use, and it's a R55 Riverfront Revitalization Zoning District, 02-065-020. And this is Part A and B, Land Development Improvement Agreement. Executed copies to be signed by the council if it's upon the consideration, and the Stormwater Best Management Practice Operation and Maintenance Agreement 4 executed copies to be signed by council for consideration. Joe, you want to explain what's happening here?
Sure. These are the developer agreements for 2500 State Road, which is the property where the Broken Goblet and the other two adjacent restaurant facilities are located. Some of this is a little different from our normal procedure in that some of the land development work has already taken place out there. The township allowed it to occur because there were issues that DEP was requiring to immediately take place, and some of those were to address the stormwater issues down there, specifically flooding going into State Road. So the land development plans were previously approved by council. The balance of the work that needs to be done will be secured by this developer's agreement. This is the normal form of agreement that the township requires, both for developer work and for the stormwater management facilities. The agreements have been prepared by our office. They have been signed by the developer. All of the monies called for under the agreements have been posted by the developer, and in fact had been posted prior to the work starting. And the agreements are both in a form for your, acceptable for your consideration and approval this evening.
Okay, that about sums it up. Is there any questions from any council members?
Yes.
Okay.
So with this agreement here, does that mean they're going to finish off what they talked about here that evening in front where they have the basin at and the repaving of the parking lot and doing all of those things?
I'll leave that to the engineers to describe the scope of the work.
Because I think I stated at a previous council meeting that Pennsylvania Steel did a great job on their basin. It looks amazing from the street, and it would be nice to have this one look as nice.
Yes, they're taking care of all of that stuff. It was quite an event to get it to the point where we are right now with the DEP stuff and everything else, but that is that's on the mend right now. And we're actually coordinating with Waterside as well with regard to the other side of the street and flashers and things like that to get across to the Goblet. So it's looking up with regard to that site after a long period of time.
I was there recently, and the parking lot was atrocious.
Parking lots, Quentin can talk about the parking lot a little bit, but that's all,
There was a little kid playing in the
they have
In the
a,
water? Like a swimming
gravel
pool?
water. and
they
it was disgusting.
posted a boatload of money for this, for the improvements.
So that all the, okay.
Quinn, you want to add to this, apparently?
Yeah, so I haven't been on site. I went down here today because I've been away for a week. The front parking lot is paved.
Oh, it is paved now, okay.
It is paved and striped. The rear one is not in the back of the building. The reason is there's a couple things going on they're trying to get fixed prior to them coming in and doing that. There are some islands that were put in. We have some issues with some lighting that I just found out about today. There's some other stuff that needs to be done before we allow them to actually do the wearing course on the back parking lot, so.
And then the front basin, didn't we talk, they were going to do some, make it
Well,
look nicer?
Well, the front base, from what I understand, they do have a landscaper on the contract who's going to be coming in and doing all regrading, seeding, stabilization, plantings, and everything like that. So it's already been issued, as far as I know, from the contractor who's doing the site work, because he's not doing that work. I did have a walk through them 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, I guess, because it was before I went away. With them, the site contractor and the owner, we went out, were numerous issues and stuff that was brought up to them prior to getting their land development approval. So it's pretty much the work, the bulk work is done. Now everything needs to be fine tuned, and that's where we're at right now.
So we're slowly but surely making our way down.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, right now, I know a lot of landscapers aren't doing anything just because of the heat. They're wasting their money. So they're kind of delaying a little bit, I guess. I haven't talked to the landscaper, but I know their work. They're reputable, and I know what they're doing. So
And that's part of their deposit that they gave us, that they'll do all that.
that's in the escrow that we have.
Right, like, and Phil said that you have plenty of escrow money to make sure all this extra stuff's done. Right, okay.
More importantly, it's on your plate and you're attending to it and being aware of it.
I'm eating well, yes.
Okay.
You're eating well?
Yeah, it's on my plate, he said.
Oh, hey, there's a pizza shop there. Okay. With your son?
You're not getting pizza there.
I haven't had my
that's for-
sleep yet, so.
Okay, thank you. But thanks for your comments, sir. But I know you've been attending to it, so we appreciate that. And you'll keep us in touch as it's moving along, and what Stacy just said exactly, it was like from the 1850s, if they had any parking lots back in those days, because it was, you said it was a swimming pool for a kid, exactly right.
Actually, yeah, I went down there for
I
their
agree.
one event they just had recently, and there was a child actually in one of the potholes that was gravel with water, which I don't know why the parent let the child do it, but that's okay.
Okay, we got that one. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have agenda item number 13. We have the explanation from our engineer as our solicitor and our inspector. So that's the information we have in front of us. I'd like to have a motion be put on the floor to accept as presented.
I'll make a motion to accept consideration and signing of agreements for 2500 State Road Holdings LLC, located at 2526 State Road, tax parcel number 02-065-020.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second the
I do
motion.
have a second on that. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
And against, the abstention unanimous. Okay, agenda item number 14, this is going to be, this consideration of an escrow release. Okay, Quentin, 11990, $11,990 for Presto Tapes, Bridgewater Road, 2-45-21. Anything you want to comment on as far as that would be unusual or normal?
Yes, so this is escrow release number 2. We're only holding back $3,500 from the original escrow that was posted with the township for the improvements. The reason for that is there was a concrete swale behind the building for all their runoff. One of the inspectors that was out there on site has seen some erosion occurring, so we're going to do a follow-up to make sure what's going on and see what's happening, and then have some adjustments made to that before we actually close that out. Other than that, everything else has been completed, and we're just waiting on that. So we wanted to we've talked to the applicant's attorney, and we asked them if they wanted us to put this on the agenda or wait until we made a determination, and they asked if we could release some money. So we felt that we have over a significant amount of money left in escrow to do any improvements or adjustments that we might require them to do.
Okay, we have the information here. Any questions from our council members? If not, I'll accept the motion for Presto
I'll make a
Tape.
motion that we
Excuse me, Mr.
approve the Presto Tape release, subject to audit by the finance company,
All right, motion on the floor.
finance department.
We have a motion, looking for a second.
I'll
Second?
You got it?
We have a
She got it.
second
Good, thank you.
from Mr. Knowles. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
And against, and abstentions unanimous. Moving on to agenda item number 15, consideration and the signing of agreement for applicant is Mr. Thomas Snyder, Wine Avenue to the north, Green Avenue to west, McKinley Avenue to the east, at the designated address of 2289 Green Avenue. And this is for four single-family attached dwellings. So this has already been done, Mr. Pizzo, is that correct?
Yes, this project was approved by council. These are the land development improvements agreements and the stormwater best management practices, operations and maintenance agreement for the project that you just described. The agreements were prepared by our office. The monies called for under the agreements have been posted by the developer. The developer has signed the agreements, and they are in a form acceptable for your consideration and approval this evening.
Okay. Your pleasure, ladies and gentlemen.
Why is there a reduction from 25,000 to 15,000 that was noted and initialed on? Gosh, hold on, I just had it. Sorry, let me find that page again. Page 9. Is that what on page 9, it was, it says originally it had 25,000 typed in, but it was changed to 15,000?
Yes.
It's just a typo?
Typo.
I believe that that is correct.
Yeah.
That the scope of the project, as you'll see from paragraph 3, there's only $115,000 worth of improvements being escrowed for in the first place. So the amount of engineering inspection that would be required is 15,000, not 25.
Okay, just wanted to be sure we were all, okay.
Okay, any other questions? Again, your pleasure. For a motion?
I'll make a motion for tax map parcel 02039-104 for the land development improvements agreement. Anything else I need to say, Mr. Pisa?
No, it's fine.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Pisa.
We have a motion on the floor. Can we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify with an aye. 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 Any more ayes over there? Joseph?
Aye, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I was passing them.
Aye, aye, aye.
Aye.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, that's unanimous for 5-2 as, who seconded? Joe. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 16, public comment. Would anyone like to come forward and make comments? Hold them back there, sir, hold them back. Okay, no one's coming forward on public comment. Other business from personnel. We'll start with Phil Worcester. Anything, Phil?
No, sir.
Okay, sounds good to me. Debbie, would you like to say anything tonight? You sure? Usually you take up a lot of space talking. Nothing tonight, okay? Mr. Pisa, your pleasure.
Nothing further for this evening. Thank you.
Nothing at this time? Mr. Knowles, how about you? Like to add something to this?
No, I'm fine, sir, thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Stacy Champion, please.
4 concerts left, if I recall correctly?
3, I think.
3 or 4, 3 or 4. And it looks like we have a fall festival in this 8 weeks, 8 weeks or something.
I think it's a fall.
Yeah, it's in fall. And I
First
did
week in
see, if
October.
anybody did not see it, that we're having a scarecrow contest this year. Parks and Recs is doing up at Community Park. And last but not least, I said this once already today on social media, but we have a lot of people in this township who keep things going, whether it's at the township or at the school district. And I just want to do a huge shout out to Miss Kim in the booth at the high school, because she is amazing.
In what respect?
She's very nice, pleasant, and kind with everybody who walks in. And she helped me today get my daughter's working papers, so I just wanted to do a huge shout out to somebody who's, very nice.
Okay,
That
well, that's...
A lot of
now
times,
we know.
people get forgotten, and I felt it was necessary or good to do that.
Sounds good to me. Okay, we have yourself, we have Stacy, would you like to add anything, hon?
That's Michelle.
What did I say? I'm sorry.
Yes,
Michelle?
I'll try
Sorry
to be,
about that.
I'll try to be short. Check out the Bucks County Sheriff's Office webpage. There are some scams going on right now, phone scams. Be very careful. With that, just be aware. There are a lot of things happening there. Check with your bank, call your bank directly if you feel that you're getting a scam call. I'd like to thank Director McVeigh for his recent comments regarding public safety in our community and surrounding communities, and the impact that some of the leadership in Philadelphia has on the effect of us maintaining safety in our own townships. He and the chief in Abington had a nice news broadcast recently, and I just want to thank him and the police department for their efforts here, keeping us safe. Happy end of summer and almost end of summer, and good luck to all of those kids starting school before our next meeting. I wish you well. What is it?
Stop for the buses.
Please stop. Stop for the buses, you're on camera, and you'll be ticketed. The only other thing I'll mention, Debbie, thank you for the reminder, is we do have Groudon Day coming up October 15th in the Chamonix Valley. So if you'd love to see a bit of history in Bensalem, come out and visit Groudon Mansion. It's a wonderful, wonderful day and kind of get to learn about our history right here in Bensalem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Joe?
I have nothing, Mr. President. Thank you.
Did I get you, Joseph?
Oh, you got me, I already declined.
He declined.
Okay, I'll just
Thank
conclude the meeting. Thank you very much. We'll see you at the last part of
I usually do
August,
too.
the 28th. This meeting is over. Debbie?